podcast for radiation physics at Wenatchee Valley College in Wenatchee, Washington. I am Todd Bussey, your instructor, and I hope you find this podcast and all the other podcasts for this class helpful. This podcast I will be discussing decimals, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and then converting between other forms of decimals. But let's look at the first example. We have four numbers that we're going to add together. Remember, when you're adding decimals, the decimal places have to line up. So in this example, I lined them up, and then we're just going to add. So we're going to end up with 608.043. We line up the decimal points, add them up, and we're done with that. The second example, we have it horizontally written. The first thing we need to do is write it vertically like we did the first one. And we're going to have to add a 0 to the end of the first number so that we have enough so that we can subtract. Because we're going to have to borrow. We're going to have to take 1 away from the 8, make it a 7, make the 0 a 10, so we get 10 minus 2 is 8, and then we subtract from there. We might have to borrow a couple times. And when we're done with this one, we have 35.4088. Now, I have not talked about rounding, but we could round that to however many decimal places we need to. The next example we're going to do is multiplication. So we have two numbers that we're going to multiply together. In this case, we do not have to worry about lining up the decimal points. We have to worry about how many decimal points we have. So we have 3.728 times 0.72. The first time we take the 2 and multiply it by the entire top number, so we get 7456. Then we take the 7, do the same thing, multiply it by the top, bring down the 0 to begin with, 260960, and then we add, and we get 268416. Now we have to put the decimal place in. The first number had 3 decimal places to the right of the decimal point, and the second one has 2 decimal places, the 7 and 2. So that's 5 total decimal places. So we start at the left and count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places. So it's going to be between the 2 and the 6. So it's going to be 2.68416 will be our final answer on that one. The next example we're going to do is dividing decimals. In this case, we have 3.27 divided into 87.24. We need to move the decimal place twice to the right because we cannot have a decimal place outside of the division symbol. So we're going to have 327, and then we move it 2 places to the right underneath the division symbol, and we're going to have 8724 decimal point. And we're going to have to add a couple zeros here because we're not sure how far we're going to have to divide. So the first one we have is how many 327s go into 872? There's 2 of them. So we go 2 times 327 gets 654, and we subtract. And we get 218, bring down the 4, so we get 2,184. So we need to know how many 327s go into 2,184. In this case, it's 6, and we get 6 times 327, get 1962. Subtract again, and we get 222, and we have to bring down the 0. And so we are going to have 6 again, and get 1962, and that's as far as we need to go on this one. So our answer is going to be 26.6, and we could keep on going. Actually, it ends up being 26.678 if we went out to 3 decimal places. But we could go on forever on this one because it will not stop. The next set of examples we're going to look at is converting, in the first case, from a fraction to a decimal. We have the fraction 3/8. And so what that means is 3 divided by 8. So we're going to put 8 on the outside of the division symbol and 3 on the inside. Put the decimal point right after the 3, which means it goes up on top. And 8 doesn't go into 3, but 8 goes into 30. 3 times, and we get 3 times 8 is 24, so we have subtracted from 24 subtracted from 30. We bring down the 6, bring down the extra 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract, which is going to be 4, bring down the extra 0. We have 8 into 45 times, and then it stops. So 3/8 is the same as 0.375. The next one we're going to do is take a percent and change it into a decimal. So we have 72%. The decimal point is after the 2 on the 72%. So to change it into a decimal, we move the decimal place 2 places to the left. And we get 0.72. So 0.72 as a decimal is the same as 72%. Now we're going to go the other way, do a decimal into a percent. So we have the decimal 0.525, and we need to change that into a percent. We take the decimal where it is and move it 2 places to the right. And so we get 52.5. So we get 52.5% is the same as 0.525 decimals. And I think that is the last example for this podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you.